Welcome to Unraveled. I'm Marvi Sarmat. Tonight, we turn our focus to Balochistan, Pakistan's most militarized and contested region, where state repression and resistance collide. Last Tuesday, March 11, the hijacking of Jafar Express, the train bound from Balochistan's Quetta to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Peshawar, shocked the nation. But instead of clarity, we were met with contradictions. How many people were actually taken hostage? How many died? Why did the military's version of events differ from what independent sources reported? All you see on Pakistani media is praises of the military, the admiration of a military operation, that the details of which, totally unknown to everyone outside the military. An unabated hatred towards everyone who speaks for the right of Baloch people. And last but not the least, the loud demands of condemnation of this attack from the liberal sections of civil society who have been vocal against the enforced disappearances and for the rights of the Balochistan, Baloch people. It is the international media outlets like BBC, Reuters, Al Jazeera, etc., that have been a source of unbiased information to some extent over those 2 days when the attack and the claimed operation was underway. But since that day, Balochistan has witnessed more attacks, more unrest, and of course, more suffering. Yet the root causes remain ignored. Enforced disappearances, for example, they continue unabated. And they haven't started with this attack. It has been going on for a while. Families demanding answers are met with threats. While Balochistan's resources are controlled by the federal center of power, where the share of Baloch people is negligible, enriching the state while its own people remain impoverished. The cycle of violence persists. Why? And is there a way out? Stay with us as we challenge the official narratives and bring you the voices that the state would rather silence. This is Unraveled, and tonight we pull back the curtain on Balochistan. To help us make sense of it all, we are joined by Rafiullah Kakar, a policy expert specializing in conflict resolution, governance, economic development, especially in the conflict-riddled areas like Balochistan. Welcome to Unraveled, Rafiullah Saab.
Thank you, Marvi Saba. It's an honor to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So let me start with the, about the contradictions in the reporting of the, we will go towards the bigger issues, the bigger picture concerns and the structural issues, because while talking to you, the discussion has to be in depth. I know your pattern of thinking and your writings. I've been hearing you. I've been following you quite diligently on the social medias, on other platforms. So I would rather like to discuss these issues in depth with you. But let's start with this this attack on Jafar Express. I feel, because I'm not in Pakistan, I consume only so much of Pakistani media, but I do consume Pakistani media. And I felt that there was a vacuum of information during those 2 days, and even now. Even the most respectful, respected people in Pakistani media have been praising the military operation, the details of which no one is able to inform us of the details of the operation, but we are just hearing that it was superb. One respected journalist even said, very senior journalist, we all respect him a lot. He even said that this operation was so good that it is going to be studied in war academies. It will be in the textbooks. But we don't know about this operation, and we don't know how many people actually died, how many people were taken hostage, are they back? Have they been killed? How many people were actually rescued by the military? Because the people, the women and the older people who just came back, I was hearing their accounts, and they were saying that the militants actually released them. So there are a lot of contradictions. What do you make of them? What is your view about it?
Thank you very much. As the famous maxim goes, truth is the first casualty in a conflict. That applies to this context as well. You are spot on uh, in terms of highlighting the issue regarding the opacity of information and the lack of credible, reliable sources who are present on the ground. Frankly speaking, I am not surprised, given that Balochistan historically has remained. It has not been accessible for independent, credible media organizations, journalists, and even researchers. The media landscape in Balochistan is quite controlled, and those people or media platforms from Pakistan proper that do get access to Balochistan, that is usually facilitated and supported by the state and the military in particular. So they also have a particular bias in the way they report stories from Balochistan, so which leaves people like us with uh, uh, navigating between the accounts of the or the official sort of press releases of the BLA on the one side and the official government narrative on the other side. And my own understanding is that in most cases, the truth lies somewhere between the two sort of official narratives. And I don't have any factual evidence to make any particular claim, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that the actual casualties were higher than they are reported, given this terrain, and particularly given the fact that over the past few years there has been this major shift in BLA's tactics, and this shift has been from the traditional hit and run guerrilla tactics to a modern urban warfare, but with suicidal sort of attacks as key part of that strategy. Now, as most of the those people, survivors who were released, some of them have confirmed that, and the military sources have also confirmed that the bulk of the militants who launched the attack initially, they left, and they left 4 or 5 people behind to take care of the or to control the hostages. So 5 people then were sort of on the ground, and my sense is, or as has been confirmed by sources as well, that these were all the what they call the fidain, the suicide bombers, which means that these people didn't care about their lives. They were there to die. So I wouldn't be surprised if the casualties turn out to be higher than this. But I think that doesn't make much of a difference, anyways. I mean, the life of one soldier or one innocent person, or for the Baloch separatists, the life of one Baloch militant is as important as the lives of others. So I think this debate about numbers at times, this excessive focus about numbers is it distracts us from the real issues.
Yeah, it's not just about numbers. In my view, for example, it will tell a lot about what actually has happened and for example, just the sequence of events. When did the military intervene? And according to some accounts, military intervened quite late. Why was the delay? And when the intervention was made, first the intervention was first not made by SSG or military. It was the Frontier Corps, whatever. I mean, some other paramilitary forces. The military joined quite late, and when they joined, even then they did not. I mean, the boots on grounds were very, very late when there was, and then there were many casualties of the passengers who were there, which were caught between the fire. So there were this, they call it collateral damage of people's lives. And then how many hostages were, because according to the releases by BLA claims that they took hostages, like 214 hostages, and then they contacted the military command and asked them to release 40 militants in lieu of these 214, to which the military refused outrightly. after which they executed all the 214 people. Now, numbers important because they tell the story. They tell the context in some situations, and this is one of those situations where the numbers are key. And that is why it is important for journalists to ask these questions. And my worry is that no one in Pakistan is asking these questions.
As I said, this is a normal development for many of us who have seen this on the ground. The media, the mainstream media in Pakistan doesn't have access to Balochistan. And as a result, they often rely on the official narrative of the government or the military. And they don't bother to get access to the ground. So that's something, as I said, probably I don't find it surprising. So I'm too used to this. So yeah, I think that's something. This has always been the case in Balochistan over the past 2 decades.
Mm. So let's go to you have often spoken about, and you have written about this, the structural inequalities between Balochistan and what you call Pakistan proper. Now that intrigues me the most. I mean, in China, they call it mainland China. Um, in India, they call it the Hindi heartland. In Pakistan, we've been calling it mainstream Pakistan. But this Pakistan proper is, to my sensibilities, even mainstream Pakistan is quite offensive to my sensibilities, but this Pakistan proper like hits really hard. So we will talk about it. Why, I mean, what made you, why Pakistan proper?
Yeah, so I think this is so as someone from Balochistan, I think I have had the opportunity to study at some of the best places in the world and become friends with many in Pakistan, the media elites, the intelligentsia, the politicians, the bureaucratic elites. And it is as a result of my experience in Pakistan that I realized and I still believe that people in Pakistan's periphery live in a parallel universe. Uh,
Yeah.
so our perspectives, our narratives are completely different from that of what you call mainstream Pakistan, and I call it Pakistan proper. By Pakistan proper, I refer to the certain sort of geographic regions, which I think particularly north central Punjab or Punjab, Sindh, and Peshawar Valley. So
Hmm.
I exclude sort of Fata, southern regions of Pashtunkhwa and Balochistan from what I
Hmm.
call Pakistan proper, because I saw this clear divide where the mainstream narratives in Pakistan proper are not even remotely synced to what is happening on the ground in the periphery, or what the people think, or what the political forces, the political movements, social movements are
Hmm.
concerned about. So it was my experience of this wide gap between these two areas and the denial of even the most educated voices, informed voices in Pakistan proper about some of the realities of these areas that I thought uh, it would help me in my analysis to sort of distinguish between between the people of these regions.
Yes, I totally agree with you there. And that's quite actually nauseating to hear. For example, students from Kazam University, I don't know, LUMS or wherever. And uh, what intrigues me more is that people who have the surname Baloch, they are the ones who are the carrier of this narratives that are common in Pakistan proper. How did that happen?
Uh, can you elaborate? I mean, I am not
I
entirely
mean,
sure.
if you look at uh, Twitter or X now,
Okay.
most of the abuse that I suffer for for supporting the rights of the Baloch people or the Sindhi people or the Pakhtun people, that comes from this, you know the surnames that are very clearly either Sindhi or Baloch, especially, and Pashtun. That's I mean, can it be that all of them are since it's anonymity of social media, all of them can be fake accounts, but uh, I see there's a lot of especially those people from these what you call peripheral regions who have been, they have grown up in the mainland, in the Pakistan proper, the mainstream Pakistan. They have also, I think, hit by this these state narratives, and they have imbibed those narratives that so strongly that they are the ones who challenge us, people like us who stand up for the rights of other people.
Uh, I think most of the accounts that you are referring to, I
Mm.
think they are these fake accounts made by organizations employed by state agencies or the ISPR directly. I rarely come across accounts which have these surnames that make them look like as if they belong to the periphery. But most of them are sort of these accounts, fake accounts. But there are cases where young people from these regions can be skeptical and critical. As I said, the mistrust is so intense and deep, but that happens only. So you can distinguish. For me, there is a simple rule of thumb. You can distinguish between those accounts. The genuine accounts would criticize you for not being critical enough.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas the fake accounts would criticize you for ignoring what they call the other perspective or being too sympathetic to these Baloch or Pashtuns or
Mm.
militants. So I think that's a simple rule of thumb for me. There is a possibility of genuine sort of youth voices being critical on social media, but most of the time there are people who will accuse you of not being critical enough.
Yeah, that's also true. But let's sorry about this, distraction. The main question that I wanted to ask was about the since you have been talking about and writing about the inequalities, the structural inequalities. Do you think that the Baloch insurgency has now turned into an ethnic conflict? I know it can be reductive. I mean, I can sound reductive, but so let me be the devil's advocate here.
Yeah, please.
People in the Pakistan proper have this concern that innocent Punjabi laborers, for example, who are just trying to earn a living in their view, are being killed. How do you respond to the criticism that while the state's repression is condemned, there is deafening silence from activists like myself, for example? I'm also abused and criticized a lot. Other people I know who are in Karachi, in Lahore, in Islamabad, who are criticized for not speaking up much about the terrorist acts of by the insurgents. In fact, may I tell you one activist from Karachi? I don't know the ethnicity. She's not Sindhi. She's not Baloch. That much I know. So she might be an Urdu speaking or maybe a Punjabi as well, but I just don't know. But she's a known activist. So I asked her, why do you not condemn it, these attacks? And she said very interesting thing. She said that, one, when you are asked again and again that why don't you condemn it, it's just a natural kind of a repulsion in you. You react by not speaking up. And second is she's too worried about you know she thinks she said that she has this worry that she will be considered too pro-establishment if she condemns an attack by the Baloch insurgents. So,
So
how do you see
I
it?
understand. I fully understand the question. So allow me to respond to it. First of all, I think there is no justification whatsoever for the killing of innocent people in any conflict. And in this conflict, the laborers from Punjab or any other part of Pakistan who come to Balochistan or travel through Balochistan for earning their livelihood. So there, any attempt to kill them, I think that is something I condemn in the strongest possible words, and we should all condemn. There is no justification
Yeah.
whatsoever for that.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I
Hmm.
think there are 2 points that I would like to highlight. First, first, there is this natural sort of hesitation when you see people who traditionally have not been friends of the Baloch people, or who traditionally have not raised voice against the atrocities committed by the state. Uh, and when something like this happens, they hold you, me, or any person for that matter accountable, as if we are involved in this, or as if the Baloch militants asked our opinion before they
Yeah.
committed such atrocity.
Yeah.
Uh, I find that not only patronizing, but
Hmm.
I also think that
And
there is no point.
self-righteous.
There is no point in trying to appease this group of people,
Absolutely.
because people like me or us, we have condemned this so many times.
Hmm.
If you want me to do this every time something happens, and within the first hour, I mean, I might not be on social media for the next 1 week, I might be traveling, or the person they want to condemn.
Hmm.
So I'm saying this because I remember in 2008 and 9, when the targeted killings of Punjabi teachers and laborers started for the first time in Quetta and parts of Balochistan. Even
Hmm.
the most radical Baloch politician of that time, Sardar Ataullah Mengal, I remember, condemned it. Now, from mainstream Baloch politicians to some of the most radical Baloch nationalist politicians, to journalists, they have condemned it times and again, times and again. Uh, So with that in mind, I think I have yet to know a prominent Baloch politician or a civil society voice who openly says that they will not condemn this violence. So
Yeah.
so if you know somebody and you want who have explicitly taken such a position, it makes sense to hold them accountable. But if that is not the case, and you have not been a friend in the past, and you just have this limited understanding where you just want to settle scores, you're neither interested in the protection of the rights of these oppressed, of these innocent laborers, neither
Hmm.
the Baloch people. So that's something that creates this hesitation. And I, for one, I don't want to be blackmailed into doing something. That's almost a
Absolutely.
blackmail. And
Yeah.
the second part, as I said, I think I have yet to come across a prominent Baloch voice, civil society activist, who has explicitly taken a position that I'm not going to condemn this. So after this, I think there is no point in trying to appease those people who, even if you condemn it, which we do and we should do, I think there is no justification for it. They still will come with many ifs and buts, and they still won't be appeased.
No, it's like it should be given. You know, it is given that you wake up and you brush your teeth. You don't say every day, "Oh, I'm going to brush my teeth." You know, something is given. You know, everyone feels bad when other people die and other people are killed, and these kinds of terrorist attacks happen. Now, I mean, you know, what bothers me and angers me a lot is that there are so many attacks in Pakistan over last few months. There have been, you know, almost every other day there's an attack. Um, I'm never asked, oh, do you condemn? Because that's it's an exercise in futility. You know, after every attack, you tweet, oh, I condemn this attack. So I just don't do that. But whenever there is an attack on Punjabis in Balochistan, only then I
Yeah.
am, you know, challenged into, and I'm, you know, as you said, blackmailed into. I will not do it because you are, you know, pressing me to do it. So I can totally understand. But that's one thing that even Maharang Bolu, I hear so much of criticism. You know, even when you know, in last couple of days, when Pakistan's media was not asking right questions from the military spokesperson held two press conferences, as or maybe more, but two of I know, no questions were asked, but the media people had the, you know, audacity to sit on the in front of the camera and say, oh, Marang Baloch did not condemn it, she never condemns. So
And
that,
also, they draw this false equivalence between the state and the non-state militant
yeah.
group. So we as citizens, the state is accountable to us. BLA is not accountable to us. We
Yeah.
pay our taxes to the state, we elect them. So we have a social contract, we have a political, legal relationship with the state. We are supposed to ask questions from the state, hold them accountable. The militants are not accountable to us, nor are they accountable to Marang. And even in the case of Marang Baloch, there was this criticism of her few months ago when innocent laborers from Punjab were killed, who were traveling through Balochistan. Marang did condemn that in unequivocal words. Now,
Mm.
if you're, as you rightly pointed out, if you are doing that every week or every day, and I think then no amount of condemnations from Marang or other sort of civil
Yeah.
society activists are enough for those people.
Yeah. And we are not asked about any other attacks.
Other
We're
attacks.
only asked when there is this, any attack on Punjabis or Punjabi laborer or anything in Balochistan. Otherwise, we are not asked. Anyway, moving on, we all criticize military's role in Balochistan, and quite rightly so. But many in Pakistan proper, I'm going to repeat that again and again. They asked, why does Balochistan remain in this, perpetual cycle of violence? Some of them argue that even if the military were to withdraw today, the insurgency, the tribal rivalries, the lawlessness, they would not just disappear. Uh, isn't this a, do you think this is a deeper governance failure? What kind of failure rather than just a, military problem?
Uh, Thank you very much. This is a very important question, and I think as the famous Urdu maxim goes that hadise ekdam nahi hote, accidents don't happen overnight. There is a long history as to why the the political situation in Balochistan has reached a tipping point that a moderate voice like me, I say these days that we have almost reached a point of no return. In my opinion, there are two systemic drivers that explain the um, underdevelopment and conflict in Balochistan. So first is, of course, uh, the role of the military. And there are two aspects of the military's role that I would like to highlight and talk in detail about one. So one is the military has traditionally used repressive measures and force to silence dissenting voices. We have a history of military operations, enforced disappearances, and other sort of brutal tactics employed by the state agencies. This is a story that is known too well for most of the people in Pakistan. Another aspect of the military that is not known too well, people in Pakistan proper have become familiar with it recently, but they still don't realize the extent of this is the role that the state has played in political engineering in Balochistan. Over the years, they have silenced genuine political voices and created and empowered a group of pliant electables, mostly Sardars, and brought them into power in Balochistan. And the history of the state Sardar alliance can be traced back to the colonial period, but the post-colonial Pakistan sort of continued with this policy of ruling the Baloch people through intermediaries and Sardars. Now, the problem with this policy is that over the years, because some Sardars also have some sort of genuine social support base, so they also try to protect their space and autonomy to some extent. So the military has this constant need of producing new artificial leadership, so that they can cycle the allies that they have with them. And in this process, they have created a group of politicians who are the beneficiaries of this conflict, who get to rule Balochistan despite having no popular legitimacy and support base. The military empowers them, and this what Pakistan proper doesn't realize, two things that they don't realize because of this unique characteristic. A, when you have a group of people in power who are here in the first place because they are they present a group of people who downplay Balochistan's issues with the federation, who do not take assertive stance when it comes to the province's rights. This is the reason they are there. Uh, this is a group of people who will never try to resolve the conflict in Balochistan peacefully. They would not be relevant if the conflict was resolved. They are relevant to the military because the conflict is there. The second thing that Pakistan proper doesn't realize, that is about governance. I often uh, hear this question that there is bad governance in Balochistan, there is corruption. So, as somebody who has seen the system from the inside as well, I absolutely agree that Balochistan probably is the most badly governed province across Pakistan. What
Yeah.
we need to realize is that this bad governance is perpetrated and enabled by the state itself.
Mm.
You can't expect good governance if you bring into power people who have either spent 500 million rupees to get elected, or who have come to the assembly without getting support from the people or without getting votes from the people. So when you have this manufactured or artificial leadership in powerful positions, they are not accountable to the people. They are accountable to the military. So as a result, if there is bad governance, it's the military and these sardars who are supposed to be held accountable. The
Mm.
burden of this cannot be placed on the Baloch people, because the Baloch people or the Pashtuns have not elected them. They are not accountable to this people. So this is an important area that people in Pakistan proper don't understand. And when they tell, let's say, when they tell a Pashtun or Baloch from Balochistan that your rulers, your sardars, you would often see that we get back to them with an ironical smile, asking that whose leaders? I mean, they're not our leaders. They have been installed by the military. So go and ask them. And I have seen this on the ground. So the lack of accountability, the bad governance, and because these people are not there, they don't have any popular support base. They don't have any medium-term interest in the development and empowerment of the people. They have short-term horizons, and
Mm.
the primary goal of even those short-term horizons is to keep their partners, their sponsors happy, and that is something that they are doing quite well.
Yeah, and over last few years, couple of years at least, the two people from Balochistan have quite endeared themselves to Punjabis, especially, going by the Punjabi people in Pakistani media. One of them is Pashtun, the other one is Baloch. The Baloch is Sarfraz Bukti, who is the current chief minister of Balochistan, and the Pashtun is your, second name. You have a similar second name, Anwarul Haq Kakad, who was the caretaker prime minister. Both of them have endeared to Punjabis so much. For last a couple of days, I've been hearing really, really, passionate praises from for some Sarfraz Bukti from the people, from the journalists in Punjab's media. Now, I mean, I have you know, my own criticism of Safraz Bukti, of Anwarul Kakar even. Uh, how would you, what is your, beef with people like Safraz Bukti?
Without saying something specific about Sarfraz Bukti, I would
Mm.
like to highlight that this is exactly the issue I have been highlighting, and I highlighted in my last comment,
Mm.
that there are people who probably can't win a union council in Balochistan,
Yeah.
and they have endeared themselves to Pakistan proper
Mm.
because they know what to say that will appease Pakistan proper. They want to keep Pakistan proper and the military happy. So they tell them, so they make a narrative that will sort of bring them closer
Mm.
to the powerful people. What what I would like to challenge is that, and I have said it to highest authorities in the state of Pakistan when I used to interact with them, that the state has been following the advice and recommendations of these people for the past 20 years. That strategy hasn't worked. I mean, you
Yeah.
have used repression, you have used brutal tactics, from kill and
Mm.
dump policy to enforced disappearances to installing blind politicians to political engineering. And where are we standing 20 years down the road? Balochistan is facing the worst crisis it has probably faced in the last 3, 4 decades. So there is no accountability here of neither the sponsors in the military nor their proteges in Balochistan. And I think these people bring little value
Mm,
because the theory of change behind this partnership is that we are in a conflict zone and we need people like these who can go and bring who can offer the counter narrative. Well, that would be, even if they were doing that, this would still make it a worthwhile relationship. These people can't even go to their constituencies if they have any. So what is the value that these guys are adding to this relationship?
mm,
Making a statement on media, on social media, that nobody in Balochistan takes seriously, but gives you some constituency in Pakistan proper. Well, Pakistan proper is already convinced. You need to convince the people of Balochistan, not Pakistan proper. That's where you need the counter narrative.
mm.
Uh, where that narrative is needed, you are not adding any value.
Yeah.
Instead, because you do not have any legitimacy, you are further uh, widening the gap between the Baloch citizens and the Pakistani state. So,
Mm,
so I really, even from the military's perspective, I often question the rationale behind this partnership. That
mm,
the theory of change was that these people would go in their constituencies and bring the citizen closer to the state and oppose the separatist cause. Well, they
mm.
can't go to their constituencies. They can't walk there. They can't talk to people. What's the point of making these speeches on mainstream media? Yes, you will just gain some brownie points. You will earn some points in Pakistan proper, but that's not the constituency, the audience you were hired for originally.
Yeah. And, there's so much at stake. The cost of, as I was just listening to Akhtar Mengal Saab a couple of days ago on Bakhadat's show. So he said something very amusing, and I've heard it in other, in Karachi's context as well, that in Balochistan now people do not say that the elections were the selection. The people say it was auction.
Yeah.
And I know that in Balochistan, for for Balochistan Assembly, the provincial assembly seat, uh, people spend close to billions of rupees. And if you spend billions of rupees for a provincial assembly seat, not ministership, not chief ministership, just a seat in the provincial assembly, how much would you make out of those, out of that position in 5 years? How do they make? I mean, how does one
Cover that money.
MPA make so much money
Yeah.
that he or she, can spend billions of rupees on for gaining that seat?
So in the recent elections in Balochistan, I know people who spent close to 500 million rupees, which is half a billion. This is insane amount of money in a small assembly like Balochistan. Now, this is how it works. They recover this money primarily through two sources. First is the development budget. So Balochistan probably is the only province in Pakistan where 99% of the development funds are decided by and distributed among members of the provincial assembly. So there is no technical due diligence involved where you identify sectoral needs, then you prioritize them, then you allocate budgets to them. And most of these MPAs have either one of their family members or a close loyalist as a contractor. So the
Mm,
MPA controls the entire budgetary process from budgetary need identification to budgetary allocation to contract awarding. The procurement process is entirely compromised. So as a result, on the one hand, the MPA allocates these funds in the name of public interest. On the other hand, he awards the contracts to his close relative or loyalist, and with the support of the local, what we call the Axian, the engineer sort of who supervises the work. That's the major instrument of embezzlement and recovery of these funds for the MPAs in Balochistan. The other is smaller amounts are also made through transfer postings and occasionally through jobs. What I would like to emphasize is when you have a regime that is considered by the people to be propped up and sustained by military support,
Hmm.
when they engage in corrupt practices like these, the people do not blame them, the people blame the state, the people blame the military. This is where the policymakers of Pakistan and intelligentsia and journalists in Pakistan proper need to understand when they make these claims about your leaders, your sardars being corrupt, without realizing that these were the people you brought into power in the first place. And this group of people, the electables, it's the
Hmm.
same group of people who switch political loyalties every 5 to 10 years. So
Hmm.
the other issue is that the mainstream parties of Pakistan, such as, I don't call them the national or federal parties, I call them the countrywide parties, because federal or national is a value laden word. I don't think they're national in the true sense. So the countrywide parties like PTI, PML, and People's Party, they happily become collaborators of the military when it comes to Balochistan. It's unbelievable. I mean, I have so many examples. The same people who betrayed and ditched them 5 years ago at the behest of the military, they will accept them again 5 years later, again at the behest of the military. And then when this happens, how come can you ask me as to why are these people representing us? It's you who have been imposing and facilitating these people. And this brings me to the second structural aspect that I wanted to highlight. So why do I have been saying this for the past decade now, that the long term, so even if the civil military issue is resolved, the de jure power and de facto power are aligned. We do not have any de facto power, and we have the supremacy of civilian elites in the true sense of the word. It still would not resolve. The Balochistan issue would persist. Why? Because, in my humble opinion, the long term drivers of the Balochistan issue are rooted in Pakistan's flawed federal design, which I believe is a majoritarian federal design. In other words, any political party that aspires to come into power at the federal level has nearly zero incentive to invest in Balochistan or protect the interests of the people of Balochistan. Politicians or political parties don't operate out of some goodwill, or they follow the incentives that are offered by the formal institutional structure. What the Pakistan's federal structure does is it has institutionalized the hegemony of the Punjab as a federating unit. And it has also institutionalized the marginalized status of Balochistan as a province. And this is another point that our friends in Punjab need to understand. And this probably is also an issue of articulation from people in the smaller provinces. When we say the overbearing presence of Punjab in the federation or the hegemony of the Punjab, this doesn't imply that individual sort of ordinary Punjabis were somehow involved in scheming or launching or hatching a conspiracy against Balochistan or smaller provinces. It's a structural issue, which means that you may not even be aware of it, but you're still beneficiary and other people are losers. So this federal system with this incentive structure, what it does is that political parties can come into power at the federal level or in the center without any support from Balochistan and other provinces as well. And Pakistan is unique in this sense. Pakistan is the only federation in the world where the size of one federating unit alone is bigger than all other federating units combined. This is a very unique imbalance, and this creates a second additional problem, again, that people in Pakistan proper need to understand for Pakistan's sake, not for the sake of people of Balochistan. That is that this imbalance make Pakistan's polity more prone to political instability than other political systems, because what you have done is you have reduced even the theoretical possibility of any party coming into power whose support base is outside Punjab. What it means is that any new aspirant to political power in the center would not rest, would not sit until they snatch Punjab. So, which means that everyone wants Punjab and no one wants other provinces. This
Yeah,
makes
that happened with PTI actually.
exactly. So that's
Imran
the
Khan was not content for having made the government in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So he tried and tried and tried to get Punjab. So throughout those years, he did not let the stability come to the politics overall.
Exactly. But as I'm saying, this is not Imran Khan's personal problem. This is a structural incentive problem that PTI made phenomenal entry into politics in 2013. They won
Mm,
a province out of nowhere. They were the third largest party in the national parliament. But
mm,
because of this structural incentive, if Imran was to become the prime minister of Pakistan, he can't possibly rest without getting Punjab. And same holds true, the converse holds true for PMLN. PMLN is more than happy to leave all other provinces and just focus on Punjab because by having Punjab, they can have both Punjab and the center. So it is this structural imbalance, this structural feature that not only institutionalizes the hegemony of the Punjab as a federating unit and marginalizes, relegates Balochistan to a marginalized position, but also makes Pakistan's polity inherently prone to political instability. And the all other issues that we see in terms of unequal distribution of resources, the what we call the pro-Punjab bias in all policies implemented at the central level, they are the outcomes and symptoms of this deeper institutional structure.
and we see this the similar thing, almost similar thing in India, where whosoever makes wins Uttar Pradesh makes the government in the center, but you don't see this kind of imbalance in their federal scheme like we see in Pakistan because of so many regional smaller provinces or regional parties. Every government has to make the coalition, so there is a continuous negotiation about the rights going on between these forces. And there are other provinces which are as big as Uttar Pradesh, so, or maybe more in terms of giving their seats to Lok
So I
Sabha.
think that makes India unique. So in India, there may be states like Uttar Pradesh which are quite big and
Mm.
enjoy significant influence and say, but they do not have a veto power as to who comes
Yeah,
into power at the federal level.
absolutely.
What
Yeah.
that means is that for a political party that aspires to come into power at the federal level in India,
Mm.
well, it's icing on the cake if you have the support of Uttar Pradesh. But even if you don't, at least theoretically speaking, you have an incentive to mobilize support in other states because you can still come into power. So,
Absolutely. Mm.
uh, in Pakistan, Punjab has kind of veto power when it comes to who can come into power in the center. And
Yeah,
that
it's
what
terrible. And that
that's
is
what
because
make this federation unsustainable, I think.
absolutely unsustainable. And this creates ethnic tensions as well among the people. And while we're talking about the hegemony, Punjab's hegemony over the smaller provinces or the rest of the Pakistan, um, while I agree, I totally agree. I don't have any disagreement there, but I have to be, a bit um, to play this unpleasant part of asking questions which
Please, please.
are predominantly asked in Punjab. So one of them is, you have answered it quite amply. That was about the chieftains, the sardars who hold sway. So in people in Punjab often say that most of the problems of the Baloch people come from their own sardars because they are the ones who are holding the purse. But you have amply
Me
you
to respond
know,
briefly to this because this is a very
answered.
common question in Punjab. So let's address it.
Hmm.
First, there are nearly 30 to 40% area of Balochistan where there is no Sardari system.
Hmm.
The first myth we need to confront. In the northern part of Balochistan, except one or two pockets, there is no Sardari system. In southern Balochistan, which we call the Makran belt, there is no Sardari system. The Sardari system is dominant in the former Kalat state, what we call the Jhalawan Saravan, Kachi
Hmm.
Plains, Nasirabad division, this is the area adjacent to Sindh, and
Hmm.
Mari Mukti areas, this is Balochistan's territory on the Sindh Punjab border.
Hmm.
So this is the first part. The second part is yes, there is at least more than half territory where Sardari system still exists. Sardari system was transformed into a corrupt, into an oppressive feudal institution by colonial intervention. Unfortunately, the post-colonial state continued that policy, and it kept empowering Sardars at the expense of the people. Except two or three Sardars, historically and even up to this day, nearly all other Sardars have been partners of the Pakistani state.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
have ruled from 1970 to 2022. I think I calculated it once.
Hmm.
From 1970 to excluding the military dictatorships, Balochistan has been ruled for more than 70% times by these Sardars. All of them, the pro-state Sardars, the ones that the state has brought into power. And
Hmm.
there is only 15 to 16% of this duration when it has been ruled by Baloch nationalists.
Hmm.
That too in bits and pieces. I think 9 months of Sardar Ataullah Mengal, 16 months of Akhtar Bengal, and then 2 years of Dr. Malik.
Dr.
All
Malik,
I'm
yeah.
saying is those people in Pakistan proper, their question is right, but they don't know that who are these Sardars that they think are the representatives of the people. What they need to understand is that these people, these Sardars who have ruled Balochistan for most part of this period, are the ones who are the partners of the Pakistani state and have found safe sanctuaries in these so-called countrywide parties. They have switched loyalties every 5 to 10 years. I have this very interesting story that I share. So you remember in 2017 there was this vote of no confidence against PMLN's chief minister in Balochistan, Nawab Sanaullah Zeri. And in Balochistan, if you have to defeat a vote of no confidence, you need 33 seats in the provincial assembly. Their coalition partners were the smaller ethno-nationalist parties, Pashtun Map and National Party. So National Party and Pashtun Map had a combined strength of 26 members, PMLN 21. So National Party and PKMAP told PMLN that out of our 26 seats, we can confidently protect at least 24 members, despite all state pressures and everything. You have to protect only nine out of your 21 seats. We will defeat this vote of no confidence. Now imagine this is the party in power in the center. They're the biggest party in the country. They could not even retain 9 out of those 21 MPs. Whereas National Party, PK Map, despite being tiny parties with no influence at the national level, were able to retain 24 of their 26 MPs despite all state pressures. Now, what does this tell us about these parties? Why did it happen? Because these are these evergreen politicians who joined them at the behest of the state. PMLN, PTI, or People's Party, they do not have any organizational presence in Balochistan. They rely on these intermediaries. But as if this was not enough, in 2024, before the elections, when Nawaz Sharif returned, he came to Balochistan. He made this visit, and when he had this darbar in Serena Hotel, where all the electables came, I was stunned and shocked to see the same people who had betrayed and ditched them in 2016 or 2017 were sitting on the left and right.
Jafar Zahri, who, yeah.
Were sitting on the left and right, and
Yeah.
some of them are now enjoying powerful cabinet positions in the provincial government. So this is the mm, level of artificiality of the ruling coalition in Balochistan, and this is how it has been for decades.
Yeah. And absolutely. But then there's also question of the internal, the question of corruption, question of lack of leadership, the tribal politics. The NFC awards, for example, they gives Balochistan the highest per capita share of federal resources. Then there was this Aghazi Hakook Balochistan. We will talk about this. I will ask you about this. What went wrong with Aghazi Hakook. But first, this issue of corruption. So why is it that despite all these resources, this little development on the ground is seen? I know you have answered it in your previous questions, but just the focus couple of minutes on that.
I think what people need to understand is that good governance doesn't happen in a political vacuum.
Hmm.
Good governance happens when political elites have a long-term incentive and vision. What makes Balochistan unique or different from, let's say, a place like Punjab? Let's start with Punjab. In Punjab, when PMLN comes into power, or PMLQ, or even PTI, they have a long-term stake in Punjab. even if some of them have come into power with the support of the establishment, but this they represent a political party that has some organizational presence, which means that the politicians or the political elite in Punjab have an incentive to win the support of the masses and come in power again. And for that, that sort of dictates that they launch some pro people, uh, people may call it populist, whatever, development interventions and improve service delivery.
Mm.
In contrast, in Balochistan, because there are no predictable rules of the game. There are no political parties. Political parties are artificially created overnight, and they
Mm.
disappear after 5 years. The only permanent political parties are the local ethno-nationalists and Jamiat Ulama Islam. Those are the players that the state has suppressed traditionally and historically. Those that are in power are is this loosely cobbled together group of electables who do not share any common ideological or political project. So as
Mm.
a result, the corruption in Balochistan is explained by the artificial nature of this political coalition that doesn't have any incentive to invest in any long-term, medium-term development. All they are concerned about is consolidating their patronage network in their immediate constituency. And for that, they embezzle funds, and we don't see any good governance because there is no vision. The political climate doesn't support it. And as you can see, you're aware that Balochistan has seen this over the past decade. Now, this is a startling fact that people in Punjab need to understand, excluding the chief ministers. Balochistan has seen six chief ministers in 10 years. Which other province has seen six chief ministers in 10 years? How
Mm.
on earth do you expect a chief minister to deliver anything meaningful if his tenure is 1.5 year or 1 year or something like that? So this is one part. The other part is the
In Punjab, there were four chief ministers in 1 year in in last couple of years when Parvez Elahi, then Hamza, then someone
yeah,
else that I know.
musical chair that was happening. But I'm sure those people who are on the ground in Punjab would tell you that public service delivery and development were badly affected during this period.
Totally in shambles. Totally.
So imagine this is happening in Balochistan for decades now. The other
Mm.
part in Balochistan that makes Balochistan unique is the internal fragmentation, partially because of this political engineering and partially because of the Pashtun Baloch divide. So in
Mm.
Balochistan, you don't have. Uh, do you know that there has never been a single party majority in Balochistan in the history? It has always been a coalition. The worst part is that the fragmentation has increased over the years, and the number of smaller one MPA parties or independents has grown because of this perverse incentive structure. So, which means that in Balochistan, even if there is the civil military issue is sorted and we have a good visionary chief minister,
Mm.
you can't possibly have a powerful chief minister in Balochistan because there are de facto 5 or 6 chief ministers in Balochistan. Every coalition partner acts as a de facto chief minister. Everyone with even 1 or 2 seats has a significant leverage. In Punjab, you effectively had kingdoms, monarchies, where Shehbaz Sharif and others have enjoyed two-third majorities, absolute majorities, with almost no dependency on their on these smaller players in the coalition or even their own MPs. So in Balochistan, it's almost the opposite. So even if all other issues are resolved, Balochistan will still face struggles because of the internal fragmentation, which then results in reaching a consensus on any policy issue, coming up with programmatic projects. And I often say that the center in many ways mirrors Balochistan. So
Mm.
the central government of Pakistan is almost a mirror of Balochistan, where you hardly have absolute or simple majorities. You always rely on coalitions, and that has implications. But in other provinces, in Sindh, you have a long history of simple majorities. In PTI, you have a long history of simple majorities. In Punjab, you almost had two-third majorities. In
Yeah.
Balochistan, this is not the case. It's there is not even a strong coalition partner like one significantly outnumbering the other. No, it's like 2 or 3 parties with 14, 15 seats, and all of those players have an equal say, which means that the kind of capacity, strong power, and will you see at the top level in Punjab, you can't possibly see that in Balochistan.
Yeah, this system clearly is not working for the Baloch people. I was working with, I worked for like 12, 15 years for the parliamentary institutions in Pakistan. And in one of the mandates, so I served 4 mandates and of the parliamentary cycle. And in one mandate, I remember in Balochistan Assembly, there was only one opposition member. The rest of the entire people, they were in the treasury benches. And the system was so dysfunctional that I was completely shocked at how a province it can even run
Yeah.
through this. It was complete sham. But considering all of these grievances of the Bloch people and these problems of Bloch people are so legitimate, why there we don't see any unified political movement that resonates with the sentiments of the Baloch people and with the rest of the country as well. Why do we only see insurgency and sporadic protests instead of a structured mainstream political force in Balochistan that works for change?
I think the Baloch have both historically and recently tried all possible avenues of political participation and protest.
Hmm.
Starting with the 1970s, uh, I think in the elections of 1970, even the Baloch militants who were running the Ferrari camps, they sort of entered a ceasefire, and the hardliners as well as moderates all participated in the elections in the hope that this is a new phase for Pakistan, the beginning of a democratic federal phase.
Hmm.
Similarly, in recent phase, in the post-Musharraf era,
Hmm.
I think the Baloch politicians have tried their best to give democracy a chance, to give non-violent political participation and struggle a chance. Let me give you example of two mainstream Baloch nationalist parties, National Party and BNP Mengal.
Hmm.
Since 2008, National Party and Pashtunkhwa MAP have been allies of the PMLN and People's Party as part of this wider Charter of Democracy consensus,
Yeah.
despite the violence that was happening in Balochistan during that period. They've consistently remained allies of the PMLN. In 2014, if you remember, when Imran Khan was out on the streets, these small parties from Balochistan, National Party, Mahmood Khan Achakzai, Dr. Malik, they were at the front line of that coalition to defend democracy.
Hmm.
In every alliance,
Hmm.
forget about the long-term structural issues, changing the federal design or a more equitable resource distribution framework. Let's start with the basic. In every alliance, these parties have started with the issue of missing persons.
Hmm.
When they enter into some political alliance, they keep this as a condition that you have to resolve the issue of missing persons. The use of force has to be curtailed and all this. Then let's come back to Akhtar Mengal. Akhtar Mengal was also among those who had boycotted the 2008 elections. In 2013, he came back, he presented his famous 6 points to the Supreme Court of Pakistan, despite serious internal resistance from his party not to participate in elections again, because the Baloch insurgents thought that there is no point trusting the Pakistani parliamentary politics again. It wouldn't and can't solve the basic issues of the Baloch people. He
Hmm.
still participated in the 2013 elections in participated in the 2018 elections. He first entered into an alliance with the PTI again on a 6 point agenda. Then he joined the PDM. He abandoned Imran Khan while he was in power. He joined the PDM coalition against Imran Khan. Again, he presented his 6 points to them. They all agree. The moment they come into power,
Hmm.
they backtrack on their commitments, and they do this because of the federal design, because these parties know that Balochistan cannot prevent them from coming into power or hold them accountable. So
Hmm.
what they do is, in their bargain, when they come into power, in their bargain with the military, I often say that the first casualty of a civil military bargain in the center is the Balochistan policy. So, in order to appease the military, they say that, look, the Balochistan policy is over to you. You take care of it as long as you don't interfere in our issues in our core constituencies like Punjab and other areas. So, what this has done is it has not only delegitimized popular, legitimate voices like Akhtar Mengal and Dr. Malik in the eyes of the ordinary Baloch, but also it has inadvertently resulted in a victory of the narrative of the Baloch separatists. The non-responsiveness of the Pakistani parliamentary federal system to the core issues of the Baloch has, over the years, proven the Baloch insurgents right.
Mm. Yeah, I totally agree with all of what you have, and I have very strong views about it, right, like you. But I still think that don't you see there is a space for a larger political alliance of all the Baloch forces, be it the Bazinjos, the Maris, the Bugtis, uh, all the major Baloch tribes, the leadership of and the middle class leadership as well, like Maharang Baloch, like you know,
I
uh,
think that movement is now represented by Marang. So
yeah.
the
So
rights,
that movement is not. I mean, that is a movement for rights, but that is apolitical. I mean, largely apolitical. It's not a political movement. So
it is political, it is not parliamentary.
it is not parliamentary. It's not. So is there a space? Do you think there is still a space for the Baloch leadership to come together, make it a movement, so powerful movement that no one could ignore it anymore?
I think my worry is that as far the window of achieving or in defending Baloch rights through participation in parliamentary politics, I fear that we've missed that window. I think the any movement that comes closest to what you have described is the Marang Baloch movement. It transcends it transcends class lines, it transcends the traditional regional lines that have divided mainstream political parties. So Maharang's movement transcends class, regional lines. It has unified the Baloch across Pakistan, and unfortunately, because of the flawed policies of the state, we have reached a point where if Maharang even talks about participation in parliamentary politics, her credibility and legitimacy would dive down. So I think this is the most dangerous consequence of these flawed policies of the past decades. That now we are now at a stage where the educated Baloch is convinced that the current political system uh, cannot possibly resolve their core issues, and this has given birth to movements like the one led by Maran Baloch.
That is such a bad news for for the constitutionalists and the democratic minds, that we have come to that point where there is absolutely zero trust of the Baloch people on the system. Quite rightly so. I mean, even I do not have a trust on this system, and I would not like Marang Baloch to be part of that system, which is compromised. We know it is compromised. I was a very strong critic of Akhtar Mengal Saab when he decided to become part of the coalition in Imran Khan's government, and later also he had to leave. But creating a political party, making it the movement, the political movement, rather than remaining outside the politics. Just capture the political space. That I would like Baloch people to do. But I know, the Baloch people know more about themselves and their concerns than us sitting outside. But we talked about the Punjab and its hegemony. Let's talk about the security, what security establishment argues. Uh, they argue that the Baloch insurgency is no longer about rights. BLA is not about Baloch rights. It's about separatism. It's about foreign funding. It's about violent rebellion. So given the attacks on the security forces, on the recent the railway, train and the railway infrastructure, and even the Chinese engineers, can Balochistan struggle still be called a peaceful movement? I mean, Of course, the Maharang's movement is peaceful movement. It's a non-violent resistance. But has it become full-fledged insurgency? Has the Balochistan gone? Is Balochistan going? Is it it has become it has it become impossible to resolve through dialogue? What is going to happen?
So there are two dimensions to this question, and this is a very important question. I often hear this on mainstream media as well, that and there are certain voices in Balochistan who propagate this, that look, these people want independence. This is not about rights. And when people like you and us argue about these rights, you are just diverting attention and uh, ascribing things to these people that they don't even pretend or claim. So let me respond to this question first. As students of social science and as researchers, our job is to investigate the variations in the intensity of a moment over time and space. We don't take the statements of the chief protagonists, our leaders, at face value. So if let's say if a Baloch leader says or a separatist says that we want independence and this is the only reason why ordinary Baloch are supporting me, as a researcher, my job is to investigate. Okay, if this is true, why were you not demanding independence? Let's say in the 1990s, why was everything calm and stable? Why weren't there as many young people joining you in early 2000s? Why has the intensity increased now? Why was there no mass participation in the early 1950s when Nawab Noroz was hanged, or in the late 1950s, or in the early 1950s when Prince Abdul Karim was launching his insurgency? He had very few people to support him. So, as a researcher, our job is not to take statements at face value. We investigate the underlying, the deeper determinants and drivers. And when you do that, it appears, yes, of course, the Baloch separatists want independence. For them, it's not an issue of rights. Many of them criticize me, some of them on social media, that for us, it's a question of independence. Who are you to talk about federal framework and rights?
Hmm.
So, my answer to this is that the debate we are having is not simply about what the leaders of the BLA or a few pro-independence groups want.
Hmm.
Our answer, we are looking for answer to the question as to why an increasingly large number of young Baloch are turning to weapons to address their grievance, or why an increasingly large number of people now agree with the Baloch separatist cause. Why
Hmm.
was this not the case, let's say 20, 30 years ago? What has
Hmm.
happened that has driven them to reach the situation? And that is where we understand that how political exclusion, the use of force, and inequitable resource distribution has over the years created a grievance that an increasing number of people have reached the conclusion that there is no point in trying for political non-violent struggle within the parliamentary framework. So it is these drivers that we have to understand. People are not born separatists. Nawab, the most radical supporter of Baloch independence was Nawab Khair Bakhsh Mari. Even
Hmm.
he started as a parliamentary federalist. He was elected in the National Assembly in the 1970. He was part of the 1973 Constituent Assembly, the constitution that we still rely on. Nawab Akbar Bukti, he was a federalist all along. Then Khair Bakhsh Mari's sons, Herpyar Mari, Balaj Mari, both were elected to the Provincial Assembly. All of these are people. The current leader of BLA, Bashir Zaib, he was the leader of BSO in Balochistan University. If he was a born separatist, why would he come to university to waste his time in education? So these people were not born separatists. They became separatists, and most of them started as non-violent federalists. They transformed into separatists over the years, and that is the question that Pakistan proper, and their media have to try to find an answer to.
That's right. And yeah, it's very worrisome. One question that sorry, it's we are towards the end of the program, but I just want to hear about what went wrong with Aghaze Haqooq Balochistan. I mean, a lot of money was directed towards that program, but it didn't produce the results that were intended.
Yeah, so I think again with the Aghaze Hukuk Balochistan package,
mm,
As I said, that what the Pakistani ruling elites need to understand, that the issue of Balochistan cannot be resolved through some cosmetic development packages.
yeah.
And it's not simply an issue of technocratic governance
Mm,
without understanding the broader politics. So remember, 2008 and 2013 was the period when all the mainstream Baloch nationalists had boycotted the elections. They were
mm,
not even part of the system and the process. And
mm,
this was also the period when Baloch insurgencies was rising, and the state used brutal force from 2008 to 2012 to suppress it. All the allegations of kill and dump, in
mm,
enforced disappearances, they happened during this period. So my
mm,
own argument is that packages like Aghazi Hukuk Balochistan or economic projects like CPEC,
mm.
they can't be implemented through a top-down model amidst an ongoing insurgency. You
Yeah, that's
have to reconcile people. You have to establish a minimum level of peace and stability. And then you launch these initiatives as a post-conflict sort of intervention. You
mm,
can't, on the one hand, be killing people, disappearing them, and on the other hand, offering carrots to some people who are not even the most aggrieved.
mm.
So that has been a major flaw in Pakistan's strategy to deal with Balochistan.
You
That
can, yeah,
the
you
use
can
of
distribute
force
this
has been
money
going in
through the
tandem.
lackeys. Distributing this money through the political lackeys who come to these positions with 400 votes. I know a person, the deputy speaker who remained deputy speaker, I'm forgetting the name, who remained deputy speaker of Balochistan Assembly in
No, I'm avoiding to call names of people.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
he got 450 votes, less than 450 votes, not even 1,000 votes. The Sarfraz Bukti, his votes did not cross four figures. So I mean, distributing that money through.
and also the use of force. So the use of force and development, they can't happen in tandem. You can't make people happy while simultaneously you are abducting and sort of killing them. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
Just wasting your money. Save that development money, or that, and maybe keep it for a better day.
Yeah. My last question would be, although I mean, all these questions are so redundant. I'm so sorry for
No,
putting you through this,
I
but I
want you
just
to ask all the questions that are typical in Pakistan proper.
very
So
typical, very typical. It's quite torturous at one point. But this question about the Indian hand, this Jafar Express incident has also been put on India. And I was watching Indian media. Most of them were like they were bizarrely, completely disregarding it. Although we can't disregard, I mean, I would be very surprised if Pakistan's enemy states, India is a declared enemy state, any enemy of Pakistan would not take advantage of what is happening in Balochistan. I would be very surprised. They might be taking advantage, but so putting, blaming everything that happens wrong in our country, which is Balochistan, on India or the external forces, actually, it is. It's bizarre and it digresses us from the real issues. What do you say about that?
I think, given Pakistan's geopolitical environment and regional security, I think the possibility of Indian, or for that matter, any external involvement cannot be ruled out. I think there is a serious possibility that some regional players are probably providing some sort of support. Having said that, there are 2 points that I would like to highlight. First, this should not be conflated, then this should not lead people to assume that India or some other external driver is sort of leading or driving this insurgency. No, the primary drivers of this insurgency are domestic, or domestic politics explains why we are here in the first place. Yes, regional players like India might be exploiting the situation. A question that Pakistanis and we need to ask ourselves is, why? I mean, we have so many political fault lines in Pakistan. Why is it that the Baloch are willing to take Indian help, and not, let's say, the Pashtuns in Peshawar, or the others in other parts of the region? So that's the real question we need to be asking, because India would like to help everyone, if that's the theory. So why are others not sort of collaborating with India? The other question I would like to highlight, and I'm surprised no one in Pakistan is asking this question. So you know that you've been writing in national op-eds. For the past 20 years, when there was a group of us who were opposing Pakistan's pro-Taliban Afghan policy and pro-militant India policy, for the past 20 years, we were fed the lies that Afghan Taliban would reduce Indian influence in Afghanistan.
Right.
India is sponsoring the TTP militancy. India is sponsoring the Baloch militancy. And if we support Afghan Taliban, Karzai and Ashraf Ghani, the Republic regime, is collaborator with India. The argument was that when the Taliban will be in power, the western border will be secure. We have seen, and as an ordinary student, at least I have written it a dozen times over the past decade, that don't make the mistake of empowering the Afghan Taliban in Afghanistan. They will not be your puppets. They will not help you achieve whatever ambitious geostrategic interests you have. And we know that since Taliban's rise to power, there is this unprecedented surge in attacks. And without a single question about accountability, it's the same people who are now telling us that Afghan Taliban are now supporting TTP and India. So now my question is, if this is true, then who is responsible? Where are the guys who had been telling for the past 20 years that India was responsible and Afghan Taliban would somehow put an end to this? So either those guys are wrong, or the guys who are making the claims currently are wrong. In any case, I would never trust a group of people who have been making these follies, these blunders after blunders, to be in charge of either the Afghan policy or India policy or Balochistan policy when they've made all these blunders in the past. So I think this is another aspect. Accountability of the previous policies is something I think it is missing in the mainstream discourse.
Yeah, the last question. Uh, where do we go from here? Is Balochistan already lost? Are we losing it? Is Pakistan's balkanization the next thing
I think
coming?
when there is a will, there is always a way.
Mm,
We are in a tight spot.
mm,
Let me confess and admit that. But there is always a way. And let me offer a possible way out.
mm,
There is still some chance to salvage the situation and resolve this conflict politically. But for that to happen, the ruling elites will have to be ready to offer substantial concessions.
mm,
Additional sort of development, cosmetic development packages or cosmetic changes would not take us anywhere. What are those potential concessions? First, I think to begin with, some confidence building measures have to be taken, because right now,
mm,
uh, I admit that now the situation is not conducive for talks. The window is closed long ago. But the
mm,
window is not closed because talks were tried. No, talks were never tried. We
mm,
have been in a state of military operation and control for the past 2 decades. And
mm,
now, whatever window was there for talks, that is closed now. So, for talks to resume or to create a conducive environment for reconciliation, I think some major CBMs have to be taken. The first of them is uh, resolution of the issue of missing persons.
mm,
Second is the establishment of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission comprising independent civil society, jurists, activists from Pakistan, as well as international organizations such as the Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, or the relevant organizations in the UN. Truth and Reconciliation Commission, resolution of issue of missing persons, and I think not only dismissal of the this election of the current provincial government, but also the state has to declare once and for all to withdraw its patronage from its proteges and lackeys it has installed in Balochistan. With
mm,
this, I think then you will go to a situation where you can create a committee, a political committee of prominent, credible politicians from all parties who
mm,
will not only talk to the insurgents but also come up with a political and constitutional reforms package to
mm,
address this issue on a permanent basis. So
mm,
these three, four are the minimum CBMs I think are needed to placate the situation. Otherwise, as appears, the government has already decided to make use of brutal force. I think that is exactly what BLA wants. You use force brutally. Unlike the past, there is no hot spot where you can target. The insurgency is so popular, everyone is a supporter. So that means that the state will have to kill more and more people. And if you do that indiscriminately, it will lead to an increased support for BLA. I think targeted counterinsurgency against BLA is very difficult in these circumstances when there is massive popular support for them. So I think that's a trap, and if the state falls in that trap, that is something that the BLA wants. And even at best, if with the use of massive force, what they will achieve at best is a temporary decline in the intensity of the conflict. But let me assure you one thing, and this is not something we want, I'm just explaining the situation. Given the grievance in Balochistan and the terrain in Balochistan, a low scale insurgency in Balochistan can continue almost indefinitely.
Yeah.
This is something that the Pakistani state should be worried about.
Yeah, but I think they have already fallen to the trap if BLA's attack was a trap. Because the first thing that the DGISPR did was saying the rules of game have been changed, which is, I'm dreading what is coming for the Baloch people and for Pakistan, actually. And then what they did was the most disgusting thing. What they do is they always discredit the activism for the enforced, against the enforced disappearances. And now what they have done is they are saying that the 18 or 30 or whatever number, there are different numbers coming from, at different times, of the insurgents who were killed, militants who were killed. 18 of them were the missing persons, the people who Maharang was protesting against that enforced disappearance. So I have very little hope that any of your three very important points would be, paid any heed to. But I hope that someone is listening to this and does something really. Anyway, thank you very much, Rafiullah Kakar Saab. Tonight's conversation has laid bare the deep fractures between Balochistan and what Rafiullah Kakar says Pakistan proper. The fractures that go beyond security operations, the security operation, the militant attacks, and enforced disappearances, they run deep into the very foundation of this state, its governance, its justice, and its treatment of its own people. The Jafar Express hijacking was not just another, tragic event. It was a symptom of a conflict that refuses to fade, a conflict fueled by decades of repression, denial, and structural inequality that Rafiullah Kakar has explained so eloquently. But as we have discussed, this conflict is not one-dimensional. There are questions that need answering on all sides. Why does the state refuse to acknowledge the political roots of Balochistan's grievances? Why do some in Pakistan proper, I would say Punjab, see the Baloch resistance only through the lens of violence and insurgency, ignoring outrightly the systemic injustices that have bred this resentment? And crucially, why does the mainstream media silence these conversations? The cycle of violence, repression, and retaliation will not end until we address the real issues, not just in Balochistan, but in the way this country treats its marginalized voices. The only way forward is through truth, accountability, dialogue. But for now, the truth remains buried under the official statements, the media narratives, the silence of those who refuse to listen. Anyway, thank you for joining us tonight on Unraveled. Stay engaged, stay critical, and most importantly, stay informed. I'm Marvi Sarmat signing off. Until next time, take care.